All right, we are here live. Justin MacDonald, welcome to this Business Builder Workshop. How's it going?
Going great, man. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of it. This is the first one we've done. That was I was thinking of what to call it, like on the spot right then. So Business Builder Workshop is what we're going with.
That sounds excellent.
It may change, but yeah, the whole idea of doing this, we've got a group of people, Kahuna clients who we're all trying to grow businesses, and we all have challenges. And for me, I know dealing with the challenges day to day that I have, it's so helpful to talk to other people who have been there, done that, or who are going through similar things and just get some different perspectives. So I want to bring people on, and I'm so glad that you can be the first one on to do this. So welcome. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think people feel like a lot of times you feel like you're alone, or like your challenges are unique. And while they may be, particularly unique, somebody's going through something that I think you can draw from and learn from and so forth. So, it really is, it's cool when you get in this space, what a community entrepreneurship can be.
Exactly. No, couldn't agree more. And, if I could pick a first person to do it, you are perfect. Because we did an interview, I guess it was like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, but I was telling you before, in that interview, we had like 5 bullet points outlined we wanted to talk about. I don't even think we ever got past the first one because I had so many more questions. So I'm excited to have a round 2 today on this. And just to start out, because I don't know if everybody here is familiar with your work and who you are. So can you just tell us a bit of background on who you are and what you've been up to?
Yeah, no, I'm confident they don't know nor should necessarily care who I am. So I'll give you a little background so you can decide if you want to stay on and listen. So yeah, like real quick, I guess. I've been in. Well, let me just start here. My former life, I was an educator and football coach, and I spent my last year as a head football coach. I spent 5 days with my family the whole year, and I was like, this isn't serving my family anymore. So I left, and I started my own business training football athletes. And at the same time, that's when I got hooked up with Infusionsoft, and I was like, okay, I've got a small business, and it just made sense. And I started working with small businesses and consulting businesses and helping them implement Infusionsoft. I did that for a few years, and then got into architecture, service architecture at Infusionsoft, and then got into customer experience, which is when we were talking, and then got into some R&D at Infusionsoft, developing the small business success method, which really was just looking at what are the patterns of success in the different elements and areas of small businesses. So it's just meeting with and researching hundreds and hundreds of small businesses, and then looking at data from thousands and hundreds of thousands of businesses across the country. And then a year and a half ago, I left, and until now, was the vice president of marketing, sales, and admissions, really everything on the front end for a university in Africa, a network of universities in Africa called the African Leadership University. And so the vision there is to launch 25 campuses across the continent. We launched Campus 1 that the university opened in, let's see, I guess it was September of 2015, and I came on a year and a half ago. We launched an MBA program in about 4 months, and so that went from zero to $3 million in 4 months to launch the School of Business, using just those principles of success that I was talking about that we'd identified in the small business success method. And then we centralized all of our marketing team, and I led the entire marketing team of the whole university. And we launched the second campus on that network of 25 campuses. We launched that last month, and we'll be on pace to do 5 campuses in 2018, and then it'll continue to grow. So that's what I've been up to the last year and a half. It's been a lot of fun, and I've grown a lot. And just now, in the last few weeks, have decided to come back. I kind of threw them the keys to the machine over at ALU, and my milestone was to get that second campus launched. So now I'm back in the States, and I get to go to bed with my wife every night because I work and live in the same time zone now. And I'm here in Gilbert, and with 6th Division now, working with entrepreneurs and helping them simplify and have success in their business, both on the sales and marketing, automation, and client journey side, and then on the predictable small business side, all the other stuff that goes on to make successful businesses. So that's it.
But that's the stuff you've been doing for so long, and I think that's a great intro. People are not jumping off here yet, so must have been good enough. And you actually sent me your a more official bio. I like that better, where you just talk through it. But one thing that, as we start into this, because I think there's so many questions that come out of even everything you just said, and in your bio, it says, this is what it says: in 1 year, Justin grew African Leadership University's marketing and sales team from 2 to 32, increased its revenue over 1,300%, and launched both an elite MBA program and new undergraduate campus, generating over 80,000 leads and 20,000 applications, all from 11,000 miles away on an 11-hour time difference, and making time for the family. So I think, when you share like a paragraph like that, I think the people listening here will immediately think, okay, how in the heck do you grow a team that way? And how do I grow my revenue that way? But I think where I want to start with you, because the way you approach it, it's a bigger picture than, here's some tactics we did to generate more leads and revenue and build our team. There's a whole process and system you have to it, and you put context around that. So to start out, give us kind of the big picture view of, we're all in different places. We're all trying to grow. How do you approach the context around that type of growth in order to set a framework to do it?
Cool question. So at the end of the day, like no matter what it is you're trying to do tactically in your sales, your marketing, how you're growing your business, at the end of the day, it's always about people. And that's a core belief that I have held for a long time, and it just continues to be proven true to me, right? And so even in my recent experience, when we started to launch the MBA and create a school of business, there was nothing, and I had one intern, and here we are, we're launching a school of business. We forecasted it to do 3 million to have 50 MBA students. And there were no resources to do that. It was literally starting from scratch, and that team got built really quickly. And when you get to a point where you realize there's literally only so many hours in the day, there's literally only so much that you individually can do. And whether you're a solopreneur and maybe you're an entrepreneur because you really kind of want to do it your own way, there is no escaping, I think, leadership. There is no escaping dealing with people. And I don't think there's escaping what I believe is a truth that if you want to create something great, if you want to create something even good, it requires you multiplying yourself and your vision and the thing that you're trying to build. It requires you multiplying that through other people. And when you have something that's really exciting for others, and you build an environment that allows people to grow and be creative and bring the things that they love to do to the game that you've built, the result is something that inevitably is better than what you could have done by yourself. And so that's kind of, I think, my core belief is it's always about people, no matter what you're doing. And I even think the services, the products that all of us are creating in our own businesses, at the end of the day, that's about people, right? You're solving something for someone, even if it's not a real sexy thing that you're doing. At the end of the day, it's making somebody's life easier, saving them time so that they can invest their time in a way that is, that they want to, the way that's more meaningful to people that they love. So I truly believe that. So that would be my kind of core philosophy about it. Regardless of all the other tactics, which we can talk about, those things all day.
No, and I think that's the most interesting piece. And there's such an overlap there, like what you're talking about on the people side. So your team and them being able to be led by you or by any leader have to understand what it is you're doing for the other people, and what is the outcome that they get from working with you. And I know that's something, especially back from the customer experience days, that you spend a lot of time talking about. And so can you kind of share, and we'll go into the team piece, I think, a lot deeper, because I think people do want to know, how do I lead? How do I build a team? But thinking about the client journey and how you kind of map that out and how that builds kind of a framework for that growth, what are some early ways that you think about that when you look at them, the people, and building a great experience for them?
Yeah, great question. So I think you've said it twice now, that this concept of experience. And I think the world is waking up to this because more people are promoting and understanding this idea that everything we do and everything we create in our businesses for our prospects and our leads and our clients, our customers and so forth, even our employees, ultimately it's about an experience. We're having experiences 24 hours a day, and we're emotional about those experiences, right? We make observations, conscious and unconscious, and so experiences create emotion, and those emotions, at even a primitive, chemical level, right? Make us feel certain ways, which is why we have loyalty to certain brands, and why we hate other brands, and why we're indifferent about some brands. And that can happen whether it's big, huge brands that we think of, like, Apple or Nike or whatever, down to small, your small business, which is a brand that people get to work with. So I'd say when you think about designing, they're having a journey whether you are aware of it or not. So where you have an advantage is, can you architect and deliberately design and craft a journey and an experience for your prospects and your leads and your customers, across the whole experience that they're having? Can you deliberately design that? And then can you do that with intentionality? Can you intentionally create emotional outcomes that you want? Like, when they hit your website, how do they feel? When they request a consultation, how do they feel? When they speak to one of your representatives, when they call in for support, whatever that is, how do you want them to feel? And then just reverse engineer the environment that makes that happen repeatably and scalably every time for every customer, right? And that's ultimately what you're trying to do. So I think the question, I want to make sure I hit it. That was a philosophical answer. I think the question, what are some of the things to put in place on kind of the client journey? Can I take a second to answer that? Was that the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So there's kind of some key plays in that journey, right? And there's when you align what you're trying to do on your sales and marketing side of the coin, which we call it the predictable client journey. That's what you're trying to create, a predictable way to attract awareness, attract prospects, turn them into qualified leads, and then obviously convert them into paying customers or clients who hopefully are loving what you're doing and raving about it. And then you're multiplying the value. You're multiplying the value you're providing them, but you're multiplying the value that they bring to your company in a couple different ways. One, you're maximizing the revenue that you're generating from your customers by having them consume more of what you do because they love it so much, or they need more of your sort of product offerings or stack. Two, you're multiplying the value of that existing customer through the word of mouth and brand equity that they're sharing, right?
Right.
And that works in almost every single kind of business model, right? Is when people love what you do, that comes back and ultimately feeds the front end. So, that's a truism, right? It's not just theory. Like, that actually works, and it's proven to work, and it works even bigger, of course, at scale, which is why certain companies don't have to spend so much on the front end of their marketing, because they have a great customer experience. So it's understanding what are the key plays that I need to design there. And I'll give, I guess, a quick answer for how we did it at ALU. So something kind of tactical. So I look at kind of layering what you're doing, specifically in marketing automation, but it's aligning all of that to the buyer's journey. Where are they in their awareness phase, in their sort of educational phase, their consideration phase? Where are they in their decision phase, right? And then when they actually, when they decide and purchase, where are they, emotionally and mentally in that point? And you're aligning everything that you're doing and saying and the messaging and so forth to where they are. And then you start building systems around that in your automation and your processes and how you're training your sales team, your lead development team, or obviously the automation that you've got if you don't have a big team, right? It doesn't change whether you're a one-person shop or you've got 100 people. It doesn't change the buyer's journey, right? So it's getting clear on the buyer's journey. And then the last thing I'll say is just in general kind of how we layered our marketing. So at the root of it, we had what we call like a drip campaign, right? And that was, I use the analogy of like a music and like a drum track, like the steady beat. So we would create a really compelling drip campaign that had one really clear objective. And when someone got in, it was providing relevant information and education to them, but also had a really clear call to action. For us, it was, hey, start your application, right? And that was going to run for about 3 months. We had about 1 email a week happening. That was kind of that drumbeat I was talking about. And it was simply driving people to start their application. When they started their application, we would shift lanes, and the content would still be the same. So if they hit email 4, and again, the content has to be relevant, it has to be valuable. And so there's no magic number of it's 12 emails, it's 8 emails, it's 4 emails. So we had 12. If they started an application after email 4, we still wanted them to get the same message and content of email 5, 6, 7. We weren't making new content, but I do want the call to action to change, because now they've started an application. The next thing I want them to do is to submit the application. And so they switch tracks, and they're getting the same content they would have otherwise gotten, but the messaging changes where the call to action just says now submit. And once they submit, the call to action changes again. Congrats on submitting. We're still giving them that valuable information. They're waiting on a decision. And now the call to action is really soft, and it's just share this, right? Here's something, share this with other people who are like-minded like you, and so forth. And so that was the drumbeat of everything. And then that allowed us to lay these other tactics and sort of marketing tracks. And maybe it was a webinar, or maybe it was a live event that's going to be in their area, or maybe it was some interesting piece of content that we want to share, or whatever. And so we'd layer that over, and then basically we built that machine, and we knew that it would convert predictably at each of these phases. So we knew whatever we put on the front end through all of our different lead acquisition tactics, and we had a ground game and air support is what we called it. We had people on the ground in the schools, like any sort of live event, driving interest, and they would ultimately, all roads led to the drip, we called it. And then we had a lot of paid traffic, and we found out how does paid traffic, what is the right messaging, what are the right channels, and so forth. And for us, even in Africa, Facebook ended up being where we wanted, and we tested a bunch of others, and it was just Facebook, and we were getting some great ROI out of that. And so once we knew that we were putting people into a great client journey, now it's a matter of, the game is simply how many people can we get into that. A lot of people try to go after lead acquisition, and they put them into a crappy journey, and you're just throwing your dollars away, and you're ticking people off. Yep. So we reverse engineered everything. And once we knew we had a machine, now it was just, push the gas pedal as much as possible. And we saw tremendous, tremendous growth. And even our goal was 10,000 applications by the end of May. We had 15,000, on autopilot at that point. So there's the philosophy of how we kind of do things. And I think that applies to all business models.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I think there's so much there. And just to recap, because what you're talking about is creating that predictable journey. And then once you have that, you are then able to engineer not only for the client an experience that they love, so making sure that they have the experience you want them to have all the way through that, but then you're also creating something that's predictable, so that whatever, you can just say, here is that journey, here's what happens, these are the milestones they go through. I can then take that to other people on my team, train them, have that be recreated. And then best of all, once you have that simple framework in place, what you said, like how you said, like you can layer more onto that. And I think that's where people maybe get stuck here, is when you think of that journey and experience, you think of all these other things that could happen. But I think what you're saying is great, is where you basically start at the end and then just build in these milestones and say, okay, what would I have to do to get them from A to B, and have that be a great experience. And then once they're at that destination, what needs to happen for them to get from here to here. Once that simple process is set up, you can do a million different things to get people to it, to add other exciting things on top of it. But until you have that framework in place, you never can scale, you can never hire, and you never create that awesome journey that you want them to have. So can you, since that I think is the most important piece, is getting that journey in place, can you talk about ways people can simplify that so that they have something to start with and then kind of layer on from there?
Yeah, totally. Can we share a screen here? I actually had a deck.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about this same principle. This is like, I'm actually stealing from a presentation I did a while ago that I think would be exactly the principle you're talking about. Let me pull it up real quick.
I'm going to try to figure out how to do this. This is live, baby.
Yeah.
We could have some.
I can do it. I think I can do it. All right, so I'm going to screen share.
Oh, good.
Share my entire screen. Okay, so you're probably seeing like yourself now.
Yeah, this is weird.
Okay, let me see if I can pull this up. Okay, you're seeing like a PowerPoint deck?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, and it went away. All right, so yeah, this is funny because it's kind of impromptu. Away from the current slide. This comes from actually a deck I did an icon 2 years ago for that principle, and I was sharing this with somebody in the office. And it's up. So this is cool. All right. You're probably seeing this view, aren't you? The presenter view. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so here's the deal. Like you asked, how do you simplify it? Your whole business is about the point of conversion. Like if you're not making money, you're not in business, right? And so that's the fuel, to, of course, to get you to grow and to earn the right to continue to stay in business. Okay. And what a lot of people do, and the mistake they make when they're trying to build a client journey, and again, that of course probably isn't what you call it, but when they're trying to build, like, what's our funnel, whatever it is, they start right here. Okay, and they think, okay, how do I get more leads? And when you do that, you've got all these leads who are coming into that funnel, which is great. But then because you haven't built the bridge from the lead acquisition point all the way through every step of the journey and the buyer's journey to that point of conversion, like all that money is just getting just falling out the back end of this funnel right here. Okay, because you haven't figured out exactly how to get these really high quality leads that you've created. I mean, you've captured them. There's value. Those are assets to your business. And if you don't build that bridge, then you're kind of throwing your money away. And a lot of people make the mistake of building left to right when they think about funnels. So the way I think you should do it is here, like just as close to we call it being close to the cash. Start building close to the cash. And you may, so here's a little example, like you may miss a lot of traffic. Your net isn't very wide. The mouth of your funnel is not very big, but you are going to capture some of it directly to that point of conversion. Okay. So, you're making money, right? And you're earning the right, and you're building the runway to be able to just broaden the mouth of the funnel, so to speak. How we did this at ALU as a real example, we started, I started in like March of 2016. To launch an MBA program, right? That, it's a $30,000 price. And we're competing against Harvard and Wharton and London School of Business and, Oxford and like all these world-class MBA programs, as well as some of the more regional local MBA programs in and around Africa. And we're going to like come disrupt that and have people spend 30 grand to do it. It was kind of daunting to think about. And we didn't have a website. We didn't have anything. We were just hiring our vice dean and starting to get, the curriculum together and all that stuff. So we're going to sell something that almost didn't even exist yet. And what we did, like literally, I know it's going to be hard to believe this, we just threw a landing page up. We had kind of 5 key differentiators, 5 key points of our messaging. And there was one landing page, I swear it was just a lead pages landing page, and we drove traffic to that. And then it spit out, basically just jumped people from the landing page. It just said like, start your application. There was no lead magnet. There was no like tripwire. There was nothing. It was just the thing we wanted them to do, which was start an application, submit an application, and then pay us to become a student. And so we just built that, and we just said, hey, just start your application. And that gave us time, and we drove traffic. People opted in because they were interested in, of course, what those key value propositions were, is Pan-African MBA and so on and so forth. And we started driving applications. So that gave us some breathing room and gave us some runway to do the next piece, which is, okay, now that you've got that, build the next part of the funnel. How can you now get more people into that experience? And so you're capturing more traffic. You're still missing some because there's other things you can be doing, but you're constantly driving your revenue machine. Right, and that's the most important thing. All this is really just a revenue machine. And then, of course, the concept continues, right? You now have a wider funnel, and you're driving people into that. What that looked like tactically for us, we were driving traffic directly to apply. Then we started creating some events, some live events around Africa that were networking events. We called them MBA for a night. We started, now we were promoting via Facebook and our lists and other partnerships we had. We were driving them to the event, and the event, people who are interested and qualified, then they would go, of course, to the application. And then we could move back even further from there and start giving more content and start finding other ways to drive people into our funnel. And now, and I'll close with this. This is all kind of off the cuff, so it's a lot of fun. We were trying to get 1,000 applicants for that MBA, and we had the 4 months to do it. And man, it was like the 11th hour, we squeaked over. And when that thing closed, we had 1,000, I think 11 applicants for our MBA, and we filled it up. We were over our goal. We had 72 MBA students instead of 50. It was great. And here's the deal. So that team was running, and I was no longer directly involved. I had marketing managers and so forth reporting to me on that, with the same exact machine with fewer sales reps, right? We had actually only one full-time admissions representative when we started out. We had three, but the automation was in place, the machine was built, the systems were dialed in, the messaging was dialed in. They had a goal of, can we get 2,000 this time, which they just closed at the end of May, and we had 6,500 applicants for our MBA program. On a goal of 2,000, blowing away obviously the 1,000, and it was just using this machine that we built, and we built it backwards. So that would be kind of the main philosophy, I would say, on what order do you attack this stuff in?
That's perfect. Yeah, I would say the same thing. Start at the bottom of the funnel. How do people, and for people that are kind of trying to apply this right now and thinking about it, how do you get paid? What happens? What is the last step they make before they pay you? And look at people that have done it recently. How do you recreate that for more people? I know for us at Kuna Accounting, we're doing accounting services, so there is no buy now button. You have to go through a conversation, and we found that just by breaking that down, when we have these qualified conversations, that 1 out of 3 will become a client. And so for us, out of all the different goals and tactics and things like that, we know what can we do to drive those qualified conversations, and it just simplifies everything once you do that. And know what is that experience that people are going to take. So I think that's a perfect explanation. And then once you have that part down, you move out. How do you get more people to that point? So I think that's a perfect explanation. I think people can take a lot away from that. And so I want to kind of shift now, because so that's the journey. And I think from what you've shared, people can come up with a nice ABC client journey. From there, you can kind of go to that other side of the coin that I know you talk about, is where you go to a predictable client journey and then to a predictable small business. And so the people on your own team, how they can learn to repeat it over and over, be a great team that's thriving and growing, and that you don't lose that same experience as the team expands. So can you share how that other side of the coin fits into it and how that business growth plays in here?
Yeah. Obviously, as you're driving revenue, then you're getting to a point of now you have to scale, right? And so then it's a matter of if you don't put intentional systems in place, first intentional processes, and then systems to automate as much of it as possible, right? To make sure that it's happening. And then, of course, like no matter how much you lean on technology, somewhere along the way, more people are going to be involved. And so it really is processes, systems, and people. And a lot of times it's people first, right? And so, that I think that's it feels like and seems like, when research shows, that's one of the biggest pain points for small businesses, well, for any businesses, right? Mm-hmm. It's actually hiring and training and retaining and elevating your employees and keeping them aligned. And it's kind of like the more people you put in the boat and give them an oar to row, the more the more chaos you can create. If everybody's paddling and everybody's putting their oar in, you've got a whole lot of energy being spent. But if it's not coordinated, you're just kind of splashing around and you're not going anywhere, or you're going in a circle. And so it's how do we coordinate that so everything's going the same direction and everything is you're producing kind of maximum effort to get the whole boat where you want it to go. And at the end of the day, I think people are one of the most important components of those three things. And there's some simple things to think about. When you start thinking about how to lead people, and always leadership starts with yourself. And I don't know if entrepreneurs inherently think about leadership sometimes. I think especially when you start out on your own, you don't think about leadership, and you just think about running your business. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I was as I mentioned earlier, I'm a football coach and was a football coach, so I see things through the lens of leading groups of people to an outcome, and then that all translated into business for me. And so it's ultimately about performance, and performance is about behavior, right? And we can talk about some of the processes and systems and stuff. How do you find the right team and hire for the right fit? How do you find the right fit? And then how do you vet them so that you can actually hire the people who not only are the right fit culturally for you, but also have the level of competence and the skills you need for this specific role. But then the question is, what role do I really need so that I can actually go out? It's just like finding clients of what exactly are you selling? What is the role you need so you can market that appropriately, attract the right people, vet that they actually have the skills that you want, that you're actually a culture fit for what you need. and are going to be a huge pain in your butt later, and then actually get on the team. And then you build a game that they can win so that they can actually do the thing that they're great at. And so often there's so many places where that can break down and cause all kinds of friction and sand in the gears of your business and of your personal life. And, if you're nodding your head because you know what a point of stress, the wrong hire can be, then, you kind of have related to that. Hold on a second. I've got windows popping up. Okay, so I wanted to give like a couple things off the top of my head that I think are helpful. So I'm going to give a bit about this performance paradigm. At the end of the day, it's about performance, and I think this can and should be applied to ourselves as well, because like I said, leadership starts with self. And that way, no matter where you are in your business, whether you've hired or need to hire or aren't thinking about hired, or whether you have many people on your team, I think this applies. So it's really simple, and you might even laugh at it because it's so simple. But I call this kind of the performance paradigm, and it works. The reason I know it works is because, and the reason I know, and I believe in simplicity, I think simplicity is stronger than anything else, is because I know it works like with my 6-year-old son, and I know it works in like the most complex business, right? And you mentioned earlier, we grew that team with that one intern I had to 32 people. And that was about 13 or 14 months. And that was just the marketing team, right? The business was bigger. It was a large, growing, fast-moving startup. So there's a lot of people involved, right? And there's a lot of coordination for who do you need and so forth. So this is like this really simple thing. And I call it the performance paradigm. And it's this simple. So when it comes to performance, there are only two options, two results of performance. You either do or you don't. And if you do, great, then like you're done. If you don't, which happens all the time, right? People aren't performing all the time, ourselves including. The result that we want is not happening. So that's performance or lack of it. So you either do or you don't. And if you don't, it's because you can't or you won't. Mm-hmm. That's it, right? Like I don't think there's any other options. You either do or you don't. And if you don't, it's because you can't or you won't. Now, you get into the can't versus the won't, okay? And typically, a can't is a leadership problem. That's on you as the leader, right? A won't is, well, it's also a leadership problem. But with a can't, you've got to figure out what the issue is, and you've got to lead through that. You've got to fix it so that they can. The won't, you fix the behavior or you fire it. You just fix it or you fire. You cut it out. Like there's no place for that, and there's only a certain amount of time that you can be patient for that. And there's some ways to assess that, and we might have a chance to talk about them in a minute here. So either do or you don't, because you can or you won't, and you either you've got a leadership problem if you can't, or you fix and fire if you won't. And so when you start looking, I'll give you a quick analogy of why I think and how that applies, and I'll use it with my kids. And again, I think this will apply perfectly if you've got a $100,000 employee. If I ask my son, my 10-year-old son, to mow the lawn in the backyard, and 30 minutes later the lawn is not mowed. Right? Performance. You either do or you don't, okay? So he didn't mow the lawn. So he didn't. A lot of people say, okay, you didn't do it, and they immediately want to fire you, or they want to make excuses for you, or whatever it is. But that's really, really shallow leadership. And I've seen a lot of really good people get misaligned or let go or whatever because we as leaders aren't looking at, well, what's the reason for it? So you either do or you don't because you can or you won't. In this case, did he not mow the lawn because he couldn't mow the lawn, or did he not mow the lawn because he wouldn't mow the lawn? Right? Well, I've got to look at that. I'll give you an easy example. If it was out of gas, if the lawnmower was out of gas and he didn't mow the lawn, then was it because he couldn't or because he wouldn't, right? Well, that's a couldn't, and that's on me. I've got to buy the gas to make sure it's full, right? So that's on me. Let's say that's not the case though. He just didn't want to do it because he's 10 years old and he wanted to, I don't know, like build with Legos or something. So now I've got to look at, well, what's the motivational problem that I need to now coach, right? And so I've got to address what's the issue here, and then I've got to decide how I want to be really clear on the behavior that I want, and then motivate the behavior that I want and hold accountable to the behavior that I want. Now, if I ask my 6-year-old to mow the lawn and 30 minutes later the lawn's not mowed, right? Is it a can't or a won't? Okay. Well, he can't even lift the garage door open. He can't grab, the lawnmower that's over his head and push it, and he certainly can't like physically rip cord and then drive it. Okay. So that's me setting him up for failure, right? And the thing is usually we only get to that first level. Did it get done or did it not get done? And we're ticked off when it didn't get done. And so we've got to really look at, are we setting ourselves, our team, and our the game up? Are we setting the game up that we're asking people to play in a way that they can win or not? right? And oftentimes we set up games where people can't win. You know, maybe the bandwidth we require of them is unrealistic. Like you're supposed to make 80 dials a day, right? But you've got all these distractions and you don't have systems to use. Or seriously, at ALU when we got started, we had all this volume we were driving with these 2 initial sales rep, and I wanted them making dials, and they were not making dials. And I'm like, and I'm in America at the time, like, why aren't we getting to these opportunities? Why aren't you calling them? Like, just pound these phones and get to these people. And I find out, well, they're in, you know, a little island of Mauritius, and we have 1 phone in the entire office of this university that's outbound, because it's not the US, right? And they're having to borrow the phone from the finance team, and they're using Skype, and, you know, they're using all these other, and they can't get people on the phone, or they don't have a phone. And so I realized so the performance wasn't where I wanted it, but it wasn't a won't. It wasn't a won't yet. I wasn't sure if it was a won't. And when you as a leader find out what are all of the can'ts, what are all the can'ts in their skills, what are all of the can'ts in the systems that we've created, the environment for them to be successful, and you just remove all of the can'ts. And now you can finally get to a place of, is it a won't? Once you removed all that, now I realize, okay, you're not being efficient. So how do we help you with the time? So anyway, that would be the main paradigm, I think, that you can apply to yourself, right? And all of your team. You know, you do or you don't because you can or you won't, and then you've got to identify why can't they or why won't they. And it's hard to look in the mirror and realize, wow, I'm asking my people to do something that's impossible. And that's an ego check.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's perfect. That was a nice overview of just leadership in general for, like you said, parenting your whole life. Like, how are you going to lead people to get them to do what they need to do? Because I think you said something really interesting at the very beginning of this, whereas basically as entrepreneurs, we can't escape leadership. Like, it's not something we can get away from. And I think that is a paradigm shift, because a lot of times the idea of hiring and of building a team, the paradigm, even though the act may be the same, but the paradigm is not necessarily, I am now leading this team to this place. It's more, I have this problem, I need someone to solve it, or I have this thing I don't want to deal with, so therefore I will bring on a team. Can you talk about kind of that mindset of leadership, and if people don't really think of themselves as a leader, how they can change that? Because really you're not going to be able to get where you want to go without that thought process.
That's an awesome question, man. And I think you're right. I feel like, and I've been around entrepreneurship a long time now, I feel like the word leadership is not something people naturally associate with themselves or with the role of being an entrepreneur, right? They've got a business to run, they're great at X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, it's leadership. And I even think it's leadership, like, you know, with our contractors, even like a contractor through Upwork, you know, like it's not as sophisticated of a relationship as somebody who's a full-time employee or a contractor that, you know, that you work with more, somebody that's in the building. But there's still a relationship there if you're going to continue to use them. And, you know, it can be transactional to a point, but really, I think relationships are just a series of transactions. So it's treating people like people. You know, if I use a designer on Upwork for a couple times, like, and we've got some back and forth going, you know, it's not longer than maybe the 3rd or 4th interaction where I'm like, hey, by the way, do you have any kids? You know, like, you know, what part of India do you live in or whatever? And we start, as we find contractors or freelancers, we start to consider them important parts of our team. So even to that, I think you've got to show some leadership. And I'll break it down to why I think leadership is inescapable. Because if you're still struggling with, well, that's not the case, I'm a one-person shop. I'm going to give you two things that I think about that maybe are helpful. One, the definition between management and leadership, right? Typically, management, and this comes from, so I'm drawing a blank. It'll come back later. Jack Welch. There we go. Jack Welch, you know, was the CEO of GE. He's like a guru of modern management. I think they call him like the father of modern management. Was one of the best CEOs like in history, right? Anyway, so he makes this distinction. He says, you know, management is basically coordinating, being responsible for the resources that you are accountable for, right? That you've been given authority over, okay? So, i.e. in maybe a corporate setting, if you've got a team of 10 people, you're managing those 10 people. If you've got a budget of $100,000 or $10,000, you're managing that budget, right? Leadership is influence over things that you don't have direct control and accountability over, right? And both of those things are necessary. They're both necessary. But when you're a solopreneur and you're not directly responsible for a whole lot of things, right, in your life, you're depending on them. And so I think a contractor, they don't report to you. right? You know, they don't report to you, and they cannot do the job, and you cannot pay them. But at the end of the day, you're trying to influence resources and people that you don't have direct control and accountability over to get them to do the things in a coordinated effort to produce the result that you want. That's leadership. There's no way around that. And when you start breaking down the things that need to be done in a business, and I'll apply this to marketing. It applies to everything, but I'll apply it to marketing so it's simple. When you start building out like a marketing tactic, you've got to think in kind of this order, this hierarchy. Like, what's the strategic objective I'm trying to accomplish? Gain more leads, nurture existing leads, convert and offer, people on my list, whatever it may be. So what's the strategic objective? The next one is tactically, how am I going to try to accomplish that? Because there's a lot of ways to capture leads, a lot of ways to nurture people, a lot of ways to make an offer. So tactically, how am I going to try it right now? Once you do that, then you get a line of assets. What are the things necessary to build that journey to accomplish that tactic, right? Think of something real simple so we're not, speaking theoretically or hypothetically. I want to capture leads via Facebook ad to a landing page, to a short email series after that. Then we'll drop them into like an offer sequence or get them on the phone with my rep or whatever. Okay, so that tactic is I want to capture leads as the strategic objective. I'm going to do that through paid social traffic via Facebook to this landing page. To what's the next asset I need? I need a thank you or confirmation page, and then this following series of emails, right? So those are what assets are. And then the next layer is cool. What is the content that goes in and on every single asset, right? And there's copy and there's graphics and there may be video and there's fields and buttons and whatever it may be. And I'm kind of talking in the digital world right now. I think this stuff applies in the real world as well. If I'm doing a live event, what are the assets? I need my booth. I need my PowerPoint presentation. I need my sign-up sheet, whatever. Once you've got content, then and only then can you decide what are the tools necessary to create this content and build these assets. Right, so I'm going to use Facebook Ads Manager, right? I'm going to use Canva or Photoshop to build this. I'm going to use, I'm going to use Lead Pages or Unbounce to do my landing page builder. I'm going to use Wistia to host the video, right? So you get into the tools, and this is all back to the point of leadership right now. Then and only then, when you've identified the tools, the content, and the assets, then and only then can you decide what skills are necessary to actually do those things, right? And so if I look, and there's two types of skills, okay, in the context that I'm talking about. There are technical skills, right, and it's pretty much the technical skills to use the tools that I'm doing here, right. And then there's creative skills, right, the ability to write good copy, the ability to create, appealing graphics and that sort of thing, right. Generally, I find that when it comes to technical skills, you sort of either have them or don't have them. Like you learn the skill and then can do it or not, right? Creative skill is like a spectrum. Everybody can write copy. It just depends on how effective that copy is. Everybody can do graphic design, but it just depends on how good the graphic design is. So those are the two skills that are needed. Entrepreneurs, the bottom line is like, if you're going to have that asset with that content, you need these skills need to be present. And either you have to have those skills, learn those skills, or find someone else who has those skills. And there's also a time for money thought of like, are you the best person? Is that the best use of your time to learn those skills? That introduces this invisible third skill, okay? When you decide to use other people's skills because their time is better spent and their expertise is better technically or creatively, now it introduces a third skill, and that third skill is leadership. Because now you're involving other people, even if it's just contractors, right? And you've got to coordinate and make sure that they actually get done the thing that you want them to do. It comes back to performance, and either they do or they don't because they can't or they won't, right? So all of that to frame of why I think leadership is inescapable. And ultimately, I think it just points the mirror back on us too. So I'll pause there. I think that might have been a mouthful anyway, but that's kind of how I think about why you can't escape leadership.
No, that was processing on my sound is. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, no, I hear you fine.
Okay, it was like really coming back through my headphones too. Okay, anyway, no, that was fantastic. And what's funny to me, I don't know if it's funny, but it's just kind of, I can see the way your brain processes everything is like, everything is a journey. Like there's like this desired outcome, and then you build it backwards. And, the same, I guess, thought pattern you approach, to that client journey, to how you do marketing, and then also to how you do leadership is all the same. I think people can learn a lot from that, because I've been working through something recently with a CFO talking about content related to forecasting and looking forward, because most people just look backward. They go through their business and their life. They get to, it's New Year's, like, how did I do last year? And let's make resolutions and see how we did and things like that. Most people don't take the time to like look forward and say, what do I want to have happen? And then for that to happen, what are the things that have to happen for me to get there? And I think that's a huge takeaway for what you're saying with leadership is it's a lot of times not necessarily about your leadership ability as most people would define it. A lot of it has to do with you being very, very clear on where you want to go, what's preventing you from getting there, and then filling in the gaps, to do that. And I think a lot of people have, like we said at the very beginning, we all have these challenges, and other people have been through them before as well. But sometimes it's like, I can't really wrap my head around what that challenge is right now or how to do something about it. And so does that come naturally to you, that ability to kind of break things down, or have you just kind of taught yourself how to do that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I don't know. It might be learned, but I think it comes more naturally to some people. You see people who I think are like systems thinkers, or they're like modular, like there's kind of a modular mindset, and I think people are wired differently. And so it probably comes naturally. And for me, it was always that was my compensation for not being very talented. Mm-hmm. Like, is being able to see the patterns in things and go, okay, how can I get an advantage? And like that started with me in sports. It started me in like academics. So, okay, I'm not real good at any of this. So how can I get an advantage? And I started seeing like, well, what are the patterns involved? You talked about forecasting, and we mentioned this idea of a predictable client journey, a predictable small business. I talked about ALU. Like I knew we put this much money in Facebook, we're going to get this on the back end. And it only worked every single time. And when things tweaked, we took some new learning and said, okay, something's off there, what's off? And then we could diagnose and actually fix it. This idea of predictability, of forecasting, like that sounds like a silver bullet or something. My belief is predictability is possible because of patterns. Like if you can see patterns, then you can forecast with a high degree of confidence that you're going to see that thing happen again. And when there's an outlier and something's off, you realize, okay, that wasn't what I expected. Why? And then you can go back to, what are the levers you can pull to try to recreate or create the outcome that you ultimately want. So I think when you think in patterns and when you look for like, what are the kind of systems and how do you take something that's really, really multivariate and complex, and how do I look at just this one thing at a time? And when it came to leadership, which by the way, I never got into sales and marketing. Like I said, I was an educator. And then I realized, like being a football coach is being an entrepreneur. You're running an organization with, we'd run an organization. We had 350 people in our football program, from all the levels down to the junior high, and all of our coaches and boosters and all that. It's a pretty big company with a very limited budget. And I realized when I got into business, all that stuff kind of started translating accidentally. And it's this idea of you're just trying to lead people to an outcome, but you got to be really clear as a leader. What's the vision of the outcome? Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish? I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall short there of getting clear on, well, what are you doing? What is the purpose of your business? What is the plan? What is the vision of where you're going? And not vision in like pie in the sky, I'm going to change the world stuff. Like that's good. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What inspires people to join you? But I think a vision is a plan, right? How are we actually going to get there? And again, you have to deconstruct that. You've got to regress that from the end result that you're going for. And I feel like, and that's just what I brought over to sales and marketing because I was never comfortable selling, or I was never comfortable. I didn't understand marketing when I first got into it. And I realized, all I'm doing is leading people to the inevitable outcome that they say they want. And obviously we want. Right? They have a problem and our product solves that problem. Then why shouldn't I boldly lead them to that solution if I believe in that solution? If you don't, get out of business, change jobs, change your product or whatever. And it makes it really easy to be confident, which is powerful marketing and powerful leadership, because you believe in what you're doing and you're convicted about it. And therefore it's also easy to say, nope, you're not a good fit for my product, or nope, you're not a good fit for our company, because you know exactly what you're doing. So I think that's the key, is getting clear on where you're going. And obviously there's times when you start a new business where, you're trying to put food on the table. You're trying to keep the doors open, trying to keep the lights on. And that's hustle time. And it's just grind it out. And the car beams are low and they're right in front of the car. And you've got to grind, and you've got to just come up for air enough to click the high beams on and say, okay, what's out there? Where are we going? And you've got to intentionally carve out time to look at some of those other things. So you can dial in, who are we? Where are we going? How am I structuring this, right? And who do I need? Like, how do I organize what I need to make this happen? And then who do I need to actually go execute that?
Yeah.
So that's how you create a predictable small business at the end of the day. It's just that intentionality of kind of that stack.
That's perfect. Yeah. The more clear you are on where you're going, the more you can, when you do pull out of that sprint, can see, okay, come back to this. Where am I? Where am I trying to go? Things like that. So this has been fantastic. I think there is a lot to take away, and people are going to want to know a lot more. So Justin, how can we find out more from you and learn from you and what you have going on?
Yeah, cool, man. So you mentioned that coin. So we see business and small business specifically as like two sides of this coin. And on one side, it's that predictable client journey. Do you have a systematic, repeatable, and predictable way to attract traffic, capture that traffic, nurture, educate, and convert that traffic into, amazing clients that love what you do, that you love to work with or serve, that then want to buy and consume more and tell other people to buy and consume more. Like that's it. And I know it sounds really theoretical, but that's what you're trying to build. And so if you want to learn more about that, well, here's the first question. This is when we start talking to potential clients who are like, there's entrepreneurs who have these issues, problems that we all have. That's really the first question. Do you have a predictable client journey? Because if the answer is no, that's what you need to do first, because that's what funds and builds the runway for you to go do everything else. It gives you the space as the CEO, as the entrepreneur, to actually function as a CEO and an entrepreneur who's leading your business. And when you're down in the weeds of just trying to get the next sell and just trying to do those other things, when you as the entrepreneur and as the CEO are doing that, there's no space for creativity, growth, and expansion. So anyway, on that side of the business, which is the first thing you should do, is get that dialed in. And by the way, when I say dialed in, get it in place, because it only will get better. The drip I talked about, we've had 5 versions that we built of that drip over like an 8-month period. We just kept coming back and improving it. And we had a team to do it. But the reason we did the first version we did was because we didn't have a team to do it. It was me writing emails and putting them together, right? So anyway, on that side, 6th Division, the agency that I'm at now, that's like what we specialize in, is building predictable client journeys. And I'm not here, as I told you, like, I'm not selling anything. I just wanted to chat with you and share some of the cool stuff that we did, because I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs. We have a free workshop, coincidentally, that's coming up. I think it's next week. It's a free workshop on like I think you even asked this question, what are the right sort of, we call them plays, what are the right plays to put in place? So I'll have to get you that, and you can get the link to everybody, on that training. It's a live training, and it's just here is what. And to be clear too on how we work at 6 and kind of my philosophy, and maybe something that's helpful for everybody. When it comes to like, how much content do I give away, and what do I sell, and how do I, that's a big question for people. Like, am I giving too much free stuff away? I believe you give away, especially if you're in services, give away the what as much as you can, right? And you sell the how. Right. And so like at 6th Division, we tell people this is what you need to go do, and walk people through like where in your business you need to be doing these things and what you need to be focused on really clearly. Like, what are the top 5 plays you should do, so forth. And then we're experts in doing it better and faster and more efficiently than anybody, so you can get there quicker and start doing those layers. So that would be the answer. We'll have to follow up on that.
Perfect. Yeah. I think people will jump over that. That sounds great. It's a free workshop, live training. And I think you're right. I mean, we talked about a lot. We covered a lot of ground, talked about growing a business, talked about growing a team, becoming a leader. And I think the big takeaway is for your business, having that predictable client journey, having it in place. And like you said, it's not going to be perfect at first. That's okay. Don't let that stop you. Have it, and then have something that you can then build on, improve, and continue to add layers to. So that's been great. One last thing I wanted to cover before you jump off here. When you sent me your bio, you had a little tidbit here at the end. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It said, one of the following is a lie. Guess which one? Yeah. So don't say it. I'm not going to guess.
Okay.
Because here's what we have. Because I think I'm going to put this poll in the group, and then if someone gets it right, I'll pick one and send them like a book or something on leadership. How about that? So one of the following is a lie.
The book that I would recommend.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me.
Multipliers. I mean, there's a lot of them. Multipliers. I think this, if you had to be one, that'd be the single greatest book on leadership, especially for an entrepreneur.
Perfect. All right. So this is it. This is the quiz. I'm going to put it in Facebook, and whoever gets it right, I'm going to pick one, and they're going to get the book multiplier. So one of these is a lie for Justin. One, former Muay Thai kickboxer. I'm doing this live so we can read your face, and maybe we'll get the answer.
Yeah, you don't see poker player on one of those, so
number two, cut from a professional football team. 3, former Marine recon sniper. 4, published journalist. Or 5, studied studio music production and fencing in college. Man, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to guess, though. If I win, I get the book. So
it'll be fun to see it. I'll tell you the truth when the poll closes, I guess.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I really appreciate the time. This has been huge for me, really eye-opening. So I will put all the details on where to find more in the notes. And thanks so much for doing this. This has been really great.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Hopefully there's some value for the audience watching. And if I can ever be of service to anybody, just, you'll find me on Facebook or put me in touch. And, I have a passion for this because the power of entrepreneurship and how it empowers, obviously, all the people we're out to serve, but how when you do it right, how well it can serve us as entrepreneurs. And by the way, if your business is not serving you as an entrepreneur, then you need to stop it, right? And so you got to or work it until it does. I've been there where it hasn't served, and you either fix it or you let it go, fix it or fire it, right? Yeah. So I'm passionate about doing that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Have an awesome rest of your day, and we will catch up soon.
Okay, later, man. Bye, everybody.